Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ohio State Football Call-In Show. I'm your co-host Ryan Stano.
I'm Garrison Gaddy.
Well, Garrison, not a whole lot has happened since we last talked on Monday, except for the fact that Ohio State has lost some recruits out of the state of Ohio, and that sent social media into a little bit of a tizzy. They were left out of Elbert Hill's final schools, so he doesn't seem to be considering Ohio State anymore. They also lost a kid right out in their own backyard out here in Lewis Center who goes to Olentangy. A safety decided to go to Clemson, and some fans are worried that Ohio State is starting to not be able to land the best kids in the state of Ohio. So, I mean, do you think that this is a trend, or do you think the fact that, Hill and Caden Gebhardt decided not to come to Ohio State, do you think that's just more of an anomaly?
For Gerhardt, I'm not surprised by that. If you look at the amount of top safeties that Ohio State is in play for right now, I think that's most of the reason why. I think there's a really good chance that Ohio State is going to leave with probably out of the top four safeties. I would probably say one of them. I would think one of them. So I understand I'm not coming for that reason. Also because, listen, man, Clemson is. I try to tell fans this all the time. Ohio State. The state of Ohio is literal talent, right? Especially if you look around the Midwest area, like even the state of Michigan doesn't produce the same talent. Indiana doesn't produce the same talent. Wisconsin, Illinois does a little bit better, but still not the same talent that Ohio has. Pennsylvania, like it's half and half, East Coast, Midwest, but Pennsylvania as a whole, it doesn't either. Missouri, it does like all these Midwest states. Ohio is the one that does, and they do it on a very consistent basis. And so it's very understandable that guys like other teams from either the ACC, the Southeastern Conference especially, are going to reach into the state of Ohio the same way, everyone. Ohio State goes and grabs an Edric Houston out of Georgia. The same way Ohio State goes and gets a Garrett Wilson out of Texas. The same way Ohio State goes and hell, man, give me another one. Just give me any player on our roster or any player from the past.
Yeah, hell, we go out of California. We get C.J. Stroud, players like that.
Julian Sand. No. Listen, I do ride with Urban when he says you got to get I think he's like the top 10 players in your state, in the state of Ohio. You got to get those top 10 players, which is very hard to do. Like let's point that out. It's very hard to do, but it doesn't surprise me, man. Especially with NIL these days, kids are more apt to go and check things out, in other places. And I've been down to Clemson's campus, guys. Ain't half bad. I get it. So no. And South Carolina has great golfing. So I get that. If it translates golf, I get that.
Absolutely. But to your point, NIL has leveled the playing field greatly when it comes to recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And we are just I think we're just starting to get to the tip of that. Last year, everyone made a big deal about Ohio State's got the $20 million roster because of the NIL they spent. And that number is only going to get bigger as far as the true top contenders.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, Ohio State's probably going to get one of those top safeties. Like they're probably going to get one of the, like you mentioned, top 3 or 4 guys. So, yeah, it would be nice to keep Gebhardt here in the state. But if he thinks he's got a better opportunity to play elsewhere, I understand that. And also, Ohio this year, they don't have the top-end talent that the state normally produces. Like, there's not a single 5-star prospect in the state by most of the recruiting services. But by the composite, there's not a 5-star recruit in the state of Ohio.
Right.
And that's not normal. Normally you're getting, the Jack Sawyers and, the Tavian St. Clairs, those guys who are 5-star blue chip guys. There's usually at least 1 or 2 in the state every single year. And I think this year is more of an anomaly on that front. And quite honestly, that's probably why Ohio State hasn't gone super hard after some of these top guys, in the state. They've got a lot of offensive linemen that they've offered, but they're not going, super, super hard at some of these guys because the top talent's just not there. As a whole, the offensive line, like I mentioned, Ohio State's in on a few of those guys because that's like the one position this year that's deep in the state. But they're going elsewhere for, some of their other needs. I mean, quarterback, they're going outside the state. Safety, they're going outside the state. A lot of the recruiting efforts is outside the state this year, which, again, you're right. You would like to get some of the top guys in the state to stay. But if you're not going to have that top end talent, then it's not, really going to matter. So, I don't think this is anything to necessarily be worried about at this point. It's also very early in the recruiting cycle. So, as we talked about, I'd much rather finish strong than start strong, when it comes to recruiting.
No, so we we slightly mentioned, right here from John Johnson. Hey, John, how you doing? Are they ever going to cap NIL? What do you think about that?
Well, that's part of actually what they've been talking about with some of the meetings that they've had, with the top conferences and all the commissioners. They've actually talked about having a certain cap set. And that's actually why they were meeting with Congress as well, because this is more of a federal issue at this point because, essentially they can't call it a pay for play, but that's what it is. I mean, they're compensating these football players for playing on the field. And I agree that they do have to find out, they do have to cap it at some level. There's discussions. They're trying to figure out what level that needs to be in order for, things to stay competitive for not just the top programs, but every program around the state. So I do think they will cap it. I don't think it's probably going to be at a number that you or I particularly care for.
What do you think the number would be?
I could see it. I mean, I could see it being around like, they're not even talking about like specific numbers. I think they've been talking about like percentages of athletic department, like how much money they're making, which I think would make things even worse because then that really changes things between the haves and the have-nots. But if you're giving me like a firm number, I think probably 15 to 20 mil is probably a good number. And I'd say even more on the low end of that, just so you don't have. I know it would benefit Ohio State, but for the betterment of college football, you don't need just Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, like just the same 4 rotating teams being at the top because they're the only ones who can afford to pay the top end of the NIL.
But for the last 20 years, has college football not been that though? Has it not been the haves and the have-nots? I mean, is much changing? I mean, Nick Saban spoke to this while he was still here. Still here, like he definitely still in college, still in college football. No, he talked about how people think that's going to fix everything. It's not. I mean,
I'll say this: with the 12-team playoff, a lot more was leveled out. Like there were more teams that I thought were good. And I'm not even talking about even teams that necessarily, made the playoff. Like obviously, Indiana is the big example with that. I don't think I think without NIL, there's no chance that they make the college football playoff. And they used their whatever NIL they had to bring those guys over from JMU, from other places across as well. So, they're the big example. But I mean, even teams like. I know Miami didn't make the playoff, but they became a whole lot better this year thanks to NIL. Ole Miss, they're a team that hasn't really been at the top echelon of the sport for a few decades, and they almost made the playoff. Thanks to they got almost their entire roster makeover from last season because of NIL. Like they spent a ton of NIL money, so I do think it's leveling out the sport a bit. But when you look at the top tier of teams that can actually compete for a national championship, you have to combine NIL with the tradition and the facilities and all that all those top programs do. So do I think it's actually going to change as far as who wins a national championship. Maybe not, but I do think it makes some things more exciting.
What? How would you feel if college football was ran like the Premier League or like how Europeans run soccer, football? How would you? So like you can if you got it, you got it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are some the difference is there are actually some Cinderella stories in like the EPL. Like Man City won the title a few years ago when they were like 1,000 to 1 to start the year, and no one thought they had a chance to win. The league. Well, college football. You look back in the last 10, 15 years, I can't really see a team that coming into the year, they were expected to be garbage and ended up winning the national title. So, I mean, that may not necessarily be they do have some things I do like relegation and stuff. Like if you could do that at an FBS level, like you stink for long enough and all of a sudden you get kicked out. And that's kind of what they're thinking about maybe doing with their new, with the settlement when however long that'll take, when they actually decide to divide it into 60 college programs at the top and the rest are at the bottom. So that'll be interesting to see. But that's just my take on that.
Before we actually let's go ahead and bring Tim up here right now.
Okay.
Stephen A.
What's up, Tim?
Tim, you there?
Yes.
What's going on, man?
What's up?
One of our few favorite Wolverine fans.
Yeah, would have liked if you wore a different shirt.
No.
Yeah, you can't. Hey, Tim, you can't come on to our show wearing toilet paper, okay?
Yeah.
Can't be doing that.
What?
What was going on, man?
Sorry, I didn't know that. Good.
How you doing?
Good.
What do you got for us?
Your schedule, I think it's a gauntlet.
Ours?
I think our schedule's a gauntlet. Okay.
All right, I'm on the list.
Why do you say that?
What games do you think are hard?
Because y'all got to play Texas week 1.
Mm-hmm.
In Penn State, they looking with redemption for all those 8 losses. Then Bryce Underwood, he just said that y'all going to lose the next 4 meetings.
Yeah, that's something we were going to talk about that later in the show. I'm sure. I know Garrison saw that, and that was going to be something we're definitely going to bring up. But go ahead, Garrison.
See, all right. Did you want to save it or wait? Like, what do you want to do?
No, you know what? He brought it up. We can go ahead and talk about it now.
Tim, welcome to my TED Talk. Now I'd watch that. I love watching Rich Eisen. It's one of the best shows out there for sports. And I saw that interview with Bryce. And first off, let me tell you, I like Bryce. Tim, I'm from the state of Michigan, so I do root usually for Michigan kids out of high school.
Can't do that anymore. Not with him.
Not for Bryce. Now, yeah, he's 6'4", 6'5", 228, basically 230 pounds. Big kid. Has a lot of talent. But here's the truth of the matter here. Your fan base, Tim, you guys are continuing to act as though his name is, I don't know, let's call him Robert Griffith III. Let's call him Cam Newton. But any prospect you can name that's freaky, you guys think he is. And I get that he came out there and said he wants 2 Heismans. And I get that he came out here and said that he wants a national championship. But I'm here to tell you, Tim, he probably didn't get a national championship based off your guys' history and just based off what's on your team and who's your coach. I still don't believe in Sharon Moore.
I don't think he's getting one.
No, wait. It's not about me believing him. Tim, believing is for you. I think Sharon Moore is average. I think that 2 Heismans is just not. Look, Bryce. Listen, if you do it, kid, great. Not gonna happen. And he said that he puts it as a chip on his shoulder that everyone thinks he can't play right now because he's a freshman.
That's what I was gonna say. Is he even gonna start?
Listen, kid. I understand that you want to put up like something like beat Michael Jordan, and you
The
want
last person that won the Heisman was Andy Griffin, and he barely won the first one. The
Tim,
last
Tim,
one that
Archie?
won
Yeah.
Tim, you think he's gonna win a Heisman?
Huh?
You think he's gonna win a Heisman?
Maybe one, but he
I
won in
respect
2.
that.
That's not impossible.
That's impossible. Tim, I'm here. I'm here to tell you the last possible time it could happen was Tim Tebow.
Yep, I agree with that.
It's hard, man.
And it's not saying that Underwood isn't necessarily talented. It's just it is like Garrison said. It's so damn hard to win 2 Heismans, let alone 1, because 1 you have to not only do you have to exceed the expectations that you set the previous season, but then you also have to deal with voter fatigue and people who don't want to see it happen, the second time. And then there's going to be people out there who only want, Archie to still be the only 2-time Heisman Trophy winner. Now, a lot of the things that Garrison was saying, I agree with. I mean, it's one thing to come in and start, talking smack about Ohio State, because look, Ohio State's lost 4 straight to Michigan. There's not a whole lot else that they can come back with to, deny that fact and try to, really turn that around, except say we won the national championship this year. But the fact that Underwood thinks that he can come in and start right away as a true freshman is another matter. I'm not sure that's going to happen. If he does, Michigan's probably in for only a slightly better year than what they were last year. I mean, even though their schedule's really, really easy, starting a true freshman right out of the gate, typically programs only do that if they're super desperate or if the guy is just truly generational, one of one.
And who knows? Who knows? But
so whose schedule is harder? Since Michigan, Ohio State, since both teams that just won a national title, whose schedule is harder than
Ohio State's schedule is harder
Michigan
for
24 or this upcoming Ohio State. Now both teams is facing Texas, but one is facing the first week. And my team, we faced them the second week. They both at home.
I think this year Ohio State's schedule was harder than Michigan's schedule was. And I definitely think it's harder. Ohio State's schedule is harder this year in 2025 than Michigan's schedule will be in 2025. Michigan's really their only tough game.
No. I'm talking about the Michigan schedule after they won the national title.
Yeah, you're talking about Michigan's schedule last year in 2024.
Yeah.
Now, look, I still think Ohio State's schedule this year is tougher than what Michigan had last year, but it's close. As you mentioned, they both played Texas. I think this year's Texas team is probably better than last year's Texas team, strictly because of the fact that Quinn Ewers was not, let's call it like it was. He was not that great. I think Arch Manning can be better, but they do lose their 2 top wide receivers, which is a problem. So, we'll see. But Ohio State, Michigan are probably going to be 2 of the top 3 teams in the country when that game is played in August. So it's going to be pretty close. Michigan's schedule last year, they had to play.
Who do you think that is returning the most defense production between Michigan losing players because they won the national title and this upcoming Ohio State defense? Now who is
Ohio State lost more.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say to that is this is like one of the I've always believed, Tim, that recruiting is the backbone and lifeblood of college football. And the difference between Ohio State and you guys in this scenario is that we've been stacking talent for years now. and I mean a high-end talent and a lot of it. So and that's why even everyone looks at Ohio State's schedule this year and says it's tough. I don't deny that. It might be tough. Like I think we go to Minnesota, to Wisconsin. I don't think that's easy. Not in a Big Ten sense, I don't.
Illinois.
Yeah, I don't think that's easy. I think for a new team, that's not easy. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of new Ohio State teams, Tim. And I've been watching this game attentively since 2000. I've seen 3 seasons under 10 wins. So
y'all team is lucky because y'all had when Ohio State and Texas, when they was in the playoffs, they had the opportunity to play each other before they have to play a rematch in the horseshoe. When Michigan and Texas was in the playoff, everybody was saying that if Washington if they would have lost the Texas, that would have been a better game for Michigan because if Michigan would have had played them before they did in the big house, they could have had a better performance.
So you go ahead, Ryan.
No, go ahead.
I was like, Tim, are you saying? Are you saying that because of our loss? Like, are you saying that if they had a chance of a rematch, they would have beaten us?
No, I'm talking about. I'm talking about when the final 14 playoff, there was Michigan, Bama. The Michigan.
Oh, are you talking about the previous?
Texas lost. Texas. They would have won the semifinal. That would have been that would have been a pre-matchup game for the upcoming game that the Michigan just lost in the big house in the second week of last September. That would have been a pre-game.
Sure.
Because we all know that most of the players that played in the first game, the second game, they're all in the NFL, except for the backups.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I think this year's Ohio State team is going to be different from last year's Michigan team, where Michigan wasn't able to follow up their national championship team with a season that really did anything. Because they didn't have the talent reserves, as Garrison mentioned. Because, quite frankly, under Harbaugh, they weren't a bad recruiting team, but they weren't in the top echelon every year. And they were able to get away with that because they had such a good coaching staff. Like, they coached guys up. They actually developed guys. Ohio State, in the past, they didn't really develop the guys in a way that enabled them to win the top games, like against Michigan in the college football playoff. So Ohio State's got more talent stocked up, and we're going to be interested to see if, the new coaches are able to come in and develop those guys that, have been sitting there waiting for their turn to play.
So what you're saying that if Ryan Day, he got a bunch of the freshmen, but they got too many weaknesses that he don't feel like developing them, right?
No, I mean, basically what I'm saying was Michigan did a better job of developing, of coaching up the talent that they had. Like they were able to get 3- and 4-star guys to be super productive for them because of the way that they were able.
Some rumors that they trying to turn the football program into a college in the NFL hybrid system. So it's when they players, it's in the NFL they rookie year, but they don't have to be developed into a brand new system because by the time that by So some of these Michigan players, when they are a sophomore and junior, a sophomore and freshman, they learning how to be they learning how to be a college player, but when they reach a junior and senior, they learn how to be a NFL starter. So when they get drafted, but they can but they can when they play they rookie year and in the NFL, they playing like they are on their second contract, but really but really they are fresh out of high school. I meant to say college.
Yeah. We've got someone coming up here in the queue, Tim. So appreciate you calling in. Yeah, I mean, appreciate you giving us some things to talk about.
I do got a channel now.
And remember, don't be wearing toilet paper on the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you, man.
See you. Here, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I'll go on and just give you guys a message from the voice of college football. Get your business, product, service, or personal brand to the next level by partnering with the voice of college football. See what our partner, the Win Agency, has to say about our sponsorship experience. You can see it right on the screen. Let's discuss how you also can reach your target market by contacting us at sponsorships at vocfb.com. Again, everyone, that is sponsorships at vocfb.com.
So before we bring this next person up here in the queue, there is a comment here I'd like to get to.
Yeah, let's talk.
So, Wesley, could someone explain development to me? So, what I was saying before is it was very clear under Jim Harbaugh that Michigan was never the more talented team when they faced off against Ohio State. Ohio State always had the top recruits, the top players at different positions. The only spot where Michigan was arguably talented than Ohio State in some of those Harbaugh years, I don't want to say most, in the most recent Harbaugh years was up front on the defensive line. Almost everywhere else, what Michigan was able to do was they were able to coach their guys in a way to basically exclusively find ways to beat Ohio State, which was extremely frustrating. They developed those guys where they basically taught them how to develop their game so they were going to be NFL ready in 3 or 4 years. Now, I mean, it took a little bit of time, but they got to that point where they had, the Mason Grahams, the Aiden Hutchinsons, the guys up front who could wreak havoc, who were not highly touted coming out of high school, but they were able to become one of the top prospects as they were heading into the NFL draft because of the coaching Michigan did. Ohio State, the rub was that they're in the top 5 recruiting every single year. They are a top 5 recruiting program. They can get those top echelon guys. They can bring 3 or 4 5-star kids in single class. And those guys typically perform. But the difference between that and the programs that, win national championships in the past and win big CFP games and win this rivalry game, those teams in Michigan have been able to get production from guys who started out their careers as 3 and low 4-star recruits. That was the difference, was they actually got some production from those guys because they were able to coach them up. Ohio State wasn't quite able to really get those guys in a position where they were, unfortunately able to win those games. And they're still searching for some answers as far as, winning the game. But I think, and we've talked about this before, I think that streak ends this year. I think 2025 is the year that they end. But what do you think, Harrison?
I'm guessing like Wesley, I'm guessing is he asking about development of the players or like just simply the players?
I assume. I mean, just development.
Okay, so yeah, what I would count as development is for a player, from the time you get to high school, because usually in high school, you can a lot of that has to do with your physical capabilities compared to everyone else that's there around surrounding you, the teams you're playing against. Usually, if you are the superior athlete in high school, if you're faster, bigger, stronger, you'll do well in high school. You'll be better. But when you get to college, like I remember, like I played Division II NAIA football. I remember getting on campus that first day in the summer. And I'm like, oh crap! Even at this level, everyone was the man where they were from, right? So you gotta get better. So say like if you are a cornerback, like what are you trying to develop? You're trying to develop your hips. You're trying to develop your feet speed. You're trying to develop your eyes. You're trying to develop ways that to impede the wide receiver without pass interfering. You're trying to figure out ways. Like one of my favorite things that I was able to do was I could mimic a wide receiver's feet while backpedaling. I was able to do that. So it's just things like that. And over the years, you want to develop to the point where, because after 2 years, I have my own personal rule. Ryan, after 2 years, I don't give a damn what a person's ranking was in high school. I don't care how many stars he had. By your junior season, your 3 years are moved. So I don't really, or your 3 years are moved from that high school season, from your senior year. So I don't really care. So where have you developed from that moment in time? And so, and like he said, I think that, and it depends on the coaches, the head coach, because it all trickles down, right? But like with Urban Meyer, he was really like overall under his program, the trenches were developed well. I would say linebackers were very developed.
And secondary.
The secondary was under Ryan Day. You're talking quarterback, wide receivers.
The running backs. I mean, the defensive good secondary players.
Everything offensively. I mean, honestly, offensive line. I mean, listen.
Offensive line this past year, I would agree with. Yeah.
No, but
I guess even Paris Johnson Jr. before that. But
I mean, in 2019, those are Urban's players.
Yeah.
But I mean, he hasn't been bad at O-line just now over the last 2 years. Like defensively, like over the next few years, starting from this season, you're about to see an influx of Ohio State defensive players going the first, second, third round in the NFL draft. So, I mean, under Jim Tressel, all defense.
But, Michael Jenkins was a first round pick.
Yeah, he was, but I think that's just when I look at development, I'm looking at the skills, like the skills you're as a player you develop. Like I mean, the guy hasn't responded to me yet, but there was a Michigan fan who I'm guessing everyone thinks he's trolling. Everyone's calling him an idiot, but for saying Ryan Williams is better than Jeremiah Smith. So you know what I did?
Yeah, ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. But I came. I said, as ridiculous as this is, I said, I'm your Huckleberry. Tell me why. And I said, give me football, like give me all football. I want skill set or production. Just tell me why Ryan Williams is better. And then he went on telling me how, because Ryan Williams is 17 and young, and did what he has.
What Jeremiah Smith's not?
No, this was funny, right? His argument was because he doesn't have as good of players around him. And I said, wait, so you're telling me you think it's harder to start as a freshman wide receiver at Alabama than it is Ohio State?
Yeah, come on.
Like, come on.
Ridiculous. If he had better players around him, he wouldn't have been starting. That's the point. Like if Alabama had better players around him, then there's a chance he wouldn't have started. So that's a ridiculous argument.
Hey Robert, you know what? I'll find the link right now and I will send it and I'll put it in this chat.
Yeah. And you were talking about, you made a point that, I think is good when you were talking about, once you're 2 years out of high school, you don't care about their high school rank anymore. It's all about what you've done. That's part of the reason, that I've been so frustrated with CJ Hicks. I know we talked about him last show and his production, he's a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. I thought he was going to be really, really good. He just hasn't produced. So I'm really hopeful that this move to edge works out for him because he had a lot of talent that I really loved coming out of high school. And, that 5-star recruiting ranking no longer matters. It's what have you done for me lately, and unfortunately, he hasn't done a ton yet.
Right.
So you want to go ahead and bring in our next guest?
Yeah, go ahead. Bring him up.
Hello, Caden.
Garrison, what's going on, fellas?
Very good. What wild takes do you have for us today? Is West Virginia about to become the number one recruiting class in the nation?
Not the number one recruiting class yet, Garrison.
Yeah.
Let's get that fact straight. And second of all, you want to talk about some of the best coaching defense, the best defenses at Ohio State. The ones under Tressel and Meyer were the dogs in the house. You didn't want the smoke with those boys. They would just absolutely destroy somebody. And Garrison, I think you can agree with me. Coach Tressel was all about that defense. He was all about destroying somebody.
He said the most important play in football is the punt. So
yeah. He literally played football to punt the ball and score one touchdown. I'll tell you this, Coach Tressel,
national title doing it.
Yeah, he did. So I don't know how. How.
Yeah.
But I don't know how he went 13-0. And like Coach Tressel means a lot to me.
14-0.
14-0. Sorry. Like, and in my lifetime, listen, a lot of people hold Woody Hayes as like the greatest Ohio State football coach of all time. And listen, if they want to do that, that's fine.
I'm one of those people.
Yes, in my eyes, is always Jimmy T, because he started the golden era of Ohio State football. We are literally in the direct. We're not we just won a national championship, so we're right still in the middle of it. We're in the golden era of Ohio State football right now. Just to remind everybody, not Urban Meyer, not Jim Tressel, not Woody Hayes, but the guy right now sitting at the throne of Ohio State football named Ryan Day has the best record in the Rose Bowl in Ohio State history. Just point that out there, everybody.
You know what, Garrison? I thank you for pointing that out, because he does have the undefeated record in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
And let's point out also that Matt Patricia is now the defensive coordinator at Ohio State.
Yeah. Hey,
so I feel like with that,
what are your thoughts on that?
The greatest era of Ohio State football is about to begin. Opponents are going to be dropping on their heads, and our defense is going to be shutting people down left and right, up and down the road. I don't care if you're Southern Cal. I don't care if you're Michigan. I don't care if you're, Alabama or Clemson. You come up to Ohio State, and especially those Notre Dame fans. Yeah, Notre Dame. I call Notre Dame fans Notre Dame because y'all are lame.
Wait, 1 second. Because Katie, you said something that I'm not completely against you with. Now, Ryan, I want to ask you about this too.
Okay.
When you say that you believe that we're about to reach like the peak era of Ohio State football,
I say that correctly.
I will tell you this: it would have to this past season would have to be the turning point, simply because you can't have the greatest era in Ohio State as a coach when we got a losing record and you keep losing to Michigan. You can't.
That's exactly where I was going.
So if you're talking about from here on, if you're talking about from 2024 on out,
yep.
Then you know what, man, look, if Ryan, Kaden, let me ask you this. I want to ask Ryan this too. What does Ryan Day have to do from now to 2030? He's extended to 2031.
I think
2031.
From here to 2031. What does he have to do to cement this as the greatest era in Ohio State football?
Win a few more national championships. Bring in more.
I need numbers.
Bring up our defensive statistics, so more shutdown points. We need to be able to sack the quarterback more. We need to be able to decrease our opponent's chances in the regular season, especially in the playoffs. We need to shut down their numbers. I'm
Wait a
talking about
second.
football, man. I'm talking about football, man.
No,
I'll
like,
answer.
how many Heismans do we need?
I'd say 3 Heismans, 4.
Oh, that's not happening.
Yeah, so that's just not flat out gonna happen.
That's I think that's putting what Ryan. Now we putting up the half the production that we have in our whole program.
Yeah, in like 7 years. Yeah.
Just hear me out, Garrison. Just hear me out.
I'm trying.
With Matt Patricia as defensive coordinator and our recruiting class looking very well, I foresee it is going to happen. We get maybe 1 or 2, possibly 3 Heismans. But I'm telling you, from this point forward, is the greatest era has begun. And I assure you that. As a friend of mine once said, now hear me out, Ryan, hear me out, Ryan and Garrison. As an old friend of mine says, everything is proceeding as I have foreseen. Well, I'll assure you, he wasn't wrong.
Sidious or that's from Star Wars.
That is Lord Sidious, aka Emperor Palpatine.
Palpatine, that's his name.
So to answer your question, Garrison, for this to be considered the greatest era of Ohio State football, what would need to happen is if, first of all, you're right, they got to beat Michigan. I mean, you can't, you got to beat them, and you got to start starting that streak up again, because they have to. I mean, Urban was undefeated against Michigan. Jim Tressel lost once against Michigan. So you got to have, you got to start that streak basically starting next year. You got to win, 3-4 in a row at least. You got to win at least one more national championship. And you probably need to get 1 Heisman. And that's probably a stretch. Their last Heisman was almost 2 decades ago. So, but if they can win some national championships, if they go back to back, then we can start having that conversation, because of all of the Ohio State coaches in history and all the great ones, no one's ever gone back to back. So that would be something that Ryan Day has done that no one else has done. And that would immediately vault him into being top 2 coach of all time, maybe the best, again, if he beats Michigan, because I can't consider you the best coach at Ohio State if you don't beat Michigan. So that's my thought.
And I see where you're coming from, Ryan. But let me point this out just for a friend of mine who lives down south, who's a Georgia fan. Shout out to who is listening to the show, who's a Georgia fan. And I know he is, because I told him I was coming on the show tonight. You went back-to-back national championships, and you only lost the 1 game to Alabama, and you destroyed your entire schedule left and right. 2021 and 22. We could do the same thing like Georgia did. Beat everybody and not have anything to worry about as far as the playoffs is concerned. Now, if Oregon wants to show their ugly bills again, we'll fry them. We're gonna make sure that we're gonna make fried duck out of them. If Notre Dame wants to show up again, so be it. We're gonna cook them Irish once again.
Hey,
and heck,
you're writing checks right now.
Garrison, hold on. I ain't finished. I ain't finished with the list yet. Brother. Hold on. If Clemson wants to show up, we will hunt them down like some bloodhounds. And I'll tell you that. And if Georgia wants to show up in the playoffs again and get a rematch, so be it. We're going to let the 2 biggest teams in college football have at it. Let's just be honest, because that is the only other college football program that is physical enough, that is tough enough, and that is capable enough to play Ohio State at their top tier. Oregon, Michigan, Michigan was a bunch of cheating cowards that whined. Now, let's just be honest. Southern Cal, they're a garbage can. Let's be honest. What's Washington going to do? Nothing. Texas, we're going to show them boys again in Arch Manning why you don't mesh and why you don't light the fire any further with Ohio State. So let's be clear about that, brother. And let's be clear. No one in the Big Ten, no one in the SEC, and for dang sure, no one in the ACC. And I hope Mark Rogers is hearing this because he needs to hear this. Nobody, and I mean no one from any of those three conferences, on the exception of Georgia, is a top-tier program like Ohio State that reloads, that rebuilds itself, but also what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as the quote says. So you can call me crazy, Ryan and Garrison, but I'm gonna leave it at that with you fellas. And Asian Posh Doran, fan of y'all's, by the way. By the way, nice profile pic. And Ryan, do me a favor. Get that Indiana Pacers jersey out of here. That's crap. Get it out of here.
Wait, Kaden, who's your team?
Los Angeles Lakers, bro. LeBron James.
Okay.
One of the best basketball players of all time.
All right, well, appreciate the call here, Caden. We got someone else here ready to get in the queue, so appreciate your call.
Hey, Garrison.
Yes, sir.
See you later, my bro.
See you later, man.
See you, Caden. Bye. All right.
I'm laughing, man, because I saw what Robert said.
I saw that.
And it's like I'm like, man, you can't like. You know me, Ryan. I'm one of the cockiest Buckeye fans you can meet possibly in this world. I'm a very hateable Buckeye, but I can't even cash that being checks. Like I've been flirting with saying back to back. I don't say it.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah. I'll just leave it at that. Before we bring in our next caller, there's one other piece of news I saw that I just wanted to quickly talk to you about. Did you see the leaked cover of the college football 26 game?
Yeah, I can bitch and moan about that too. What?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. So last year's cover, I played the game religiously when it came out. Quinshon Judkins was the only Ohio State Buckeye on the cover. Okay,
barely.
Based off
barely.
Well, you can see him. Based on this one, Jeremiah Smith is front row. He is a front row guy. Caleb Downs is in it, and Ryan Day's in it. So they got three Buckeyes there. What I found hilarious was they had James Franklin standing in front of Ryan Day.
Yeah.
Like, he is someone that's like...
not just James. Not just James.
Yeah.
Right next to him was Nick Singleton in front of Caleb Downs.
Yeah.
The second best football player in college football.
Yeah. I found that wildly interesting. But also, does this mean, I'm assuming this means that coaches are actually going to be in the game now, which would be kind of interesting. So if for those Ohio State fans that still hate Ryan Day, you can fire him, I guess, once the game comes out.
You know what's funny? I want the. I'm gonna text it to you. I found this hilarious clip from the Colin Cowherd's podcast with what's his name? But I saw Darko post it, Michigan State guy, and it's like a video of them just bad talking Ryan Day, and about how Ohio State's going to look at an early exit from the.
Oh no, I saw that floating around.
Oh my gosh! Yeah. Well, last night I actually watched the Ohio State Tennessee game this morning. Actually, highlights. I watched the highlights from it. I don't know how many times I rewind that first Jeremiah touchdown. It's just on repeat, dude.
Yeah, no, we'll be watching that for years to come. I just want to get your quick thoughts on that before we bring them in.
Yeah.
You want me to go ahead and bring in our next caller?
Let's do it. I'm very curious on what a stereotypical Buckeye is. I hope it's me.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What's going on?
Good. What's going on?
All right. Hey, man, first-time caller. Always appreciate the show. I was actually going to call and talk about something else, but then you brought up something very interesting. You brought up the college football, picture, the front page allegedly that they're going to put on. And did you guys see that Underwood is going to be on there?
Underwood is on there.
Yes.
Which is
oh my God. Holy cow. What? I mean, I'm not surprised anymore, right? I mean,
look,
it's
one of those NIL deals that his agent was
maybe
negotiate.
And maybe this is my scarlet glasses showing through. My understanding is there's a bunch of Michigan alums on that development team for EA. Because we used to have. Think of the players we used to have on the cover. When we had a running back on that cover, it was Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Last year we had a running back on the cover, and it was Donovan Edwards, who had less than 600 yards of rushing in 2023.
When the last version of the game was Denard
Robinson.
Yeah.
But he deserved that. He was an electric player. Sure. Okay. He deserved that. I'm okay with that. But you put a guy with less than 600 yards of rushing on the front cover.
Oh, it's not even that. It's not even that. This is one of my favorite Donovan Edwards stats to just throw out there. After that good season he had in 2022, in 2023, he followed that up with, I believe, 4 games under 2 yards a carry, 5 games under just 4 yards a carry, and then in 2 games under 2 yards a carry, 3 yards a carry. That's what he had. The guy is average. He's average.
And you put him on the front page, the front cover, my bad, on the front freaking cover of college football, 24. What are we doing? And then you have a guy who has never played a down of college football, and he's on, and granted, we don't have like single front covers anymore. It's not like there's one person on the cover anymore. It's not what it was. But you have Jeremiah Smith. That's good. At least he's Jeremiah Smith's front forefront on that, which is good. Yeah. But freaking James Franklin up front. You want to talk about third base, Ryan Day. Third place. James Franklin over here on the front. And then you have a guy who's never played a down of football, and he's on the front cover of the game that used to be the front cover used to be reserved for what would have been considered one of the at least one of the best players in the entire sport. And we're putting some 17 or 18-year-old kid on there who hasn't shown anything, who's going to a school that is not known for developing quarterbacks.
And that's something that he actually mentioned when he initially committed to LSU. He's like, well, tell me a Michigan quarterback that's been developed in the NFL. I'll wait. And then all the Michigan fans started to bury that video. To your point about the cover of the game, it was interesting, Troy Smith was never on the cover. He won the Heisman Trophy.
No.
On the cover.
Do you know who the cover was on that year? Do you know who was on the cover that year? Was that 2006?
That would have been 2006.
It was.
Well, it would have been 2007 because back then you had to be out of college in order to get on, right?
It was the dude from Utah. I think it was crap.
Yeah, that was when Urban Meyer was there, and they were actually good.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, that was when Urban Meyer was there, and they got screwed out of the BCS because they weren't they weren't a big school, so they couldn't make the BCS championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no! You know what? 2006. You know what they did instead? In 2006, they put Desmond Howard on the cover.
Really?
Yeah, and then 2007. It was Reggie Bush.
They must have still been Michigan alums back then,
And you know why I think Desmond Howard was on that cover?
No.
That might have been the season when they first started putting historic teams on the game.
That was the first year that they had the race for the Heisman. Yes. Mm-hmm. That was the first time that they added that.
Those games are great. Those games are great.
I was on the sports games at the time. But
I used to plug my PS2 into the Ethernet so I could play online. Yeah. But
that's right. In 2005 was Larry Fitzgerald. So it's typically 2 years after, you've had a really good season. So again, Troy Smith wasn't on there in 2008. Mm-hmm. Like won a Heisman Trophy, don't do anything.
I mean, dude, we've had a lot of guys that could have been on. I mean, after that championship run, Zeke could have been on there. He wasn't.
Yeah. Well, that was after. That was after that ended. It ended with 2014.
Oh yeah, you're right. Oh, you're right.
And Zeke would have had to be on the 2015 one. Well, and there was no 2015 one.
Yeah, actually, he would have had to been on the 2016 one because he was still playing in 2015.
You're right. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad you guys brought that up before I jumped on because I was going to go another direction, but But if we're done with this one, putting freshmen on there and some weird, interesting Michigan stuff going on the last couple of years with the covers. I'm interested in your guys' thoughts because I feel like you guys were a little divided on the whole Matt Patricia thing, and since that's happened, we've had some interviews with Matt Patricia. So he's been able to get in front of the camera and kind of talk. Have your opinions on Matt Patricia changed at all? Since the original hiring?
Yeah. So to your point, we were very divided on that. In fact, I don't think we could be on more opposite spectrums in terms of what we thought about the hire. Garrison was much more positive.
You're right, Garrison.
I was. So, as far as, his interviews were good. He said all the right things. He mentioned the fact that he, wanted to be an influence on college-age kids. He wanted to run multiple defenses, so he wasn't going to stick with just one specific, personnel group. He said all the right things about, coming to Ohio State and developing as a coach. So that's all well and good. I am more concerned about the product that he puts onto the field because there was a reason he was out of football completely last year, and it wasn't because of his choosing. So that's really where I'm going to have my opinion change is coming in the fall. What does the defense look like against Texas? What does the defense look like against, even Illinois and Minnesota, like those other against Penn State, Michigan? That's what I'm going to care about. I don't expect him to be able to put up a top 5 defense in his first year like Jim Knowles was. With the production that Ohio State lost last year, I don't think that's a realistic expectation. But if he doesn't put something in there that's, top 20, I would say, with the talent that Ohio State has, I think anything less than that is probably a failure. And that's what I'm interested to see. What do you think, Harrison?
So, first off, I'm happy with the hire. At first, I did have some skepticism about it. I'm a lot happier about it now. After seeing him talk to the media, after seeing Ryan Day talk about him, after seeing Coach Walt talk about him, I personally believe that it's going to be a good hire overall. I personally don't expect a top 5, top 10 defense this season. I think that we'll be in the same area where if you take Tetons, you take the guys up in Ann Arbor, take them from last year, right? Now, I said going to last year that their defense will still be good, but the numbers won't look the same. A, because you had new DC. B, because your offense is going to be a little bit slower. They get newer guys on that team, of course, and you're going to put your defense on the field a little bit more, and you're also playing better offenses. I think this season, the offense is going to have to get, unless they start shooting off from all cylinders week 1 against Texas, I expect them to have some struggles. That means your defense is going to be on the field more. New coaching, at least at the top of it. All the position coaches are still here. Everyone's still here, so maybe not as bad there. But we play better, compared to last season in the regular. We play better offenses. You start off with Texas. You got Illinois, who has one of the better Big Ten quarterbacks. You have who played really good last year, and it's going to be him in year 2. I expect Wisconsin to be better on offense this season. I expect Michigan to be better on offense this season. I expect Penn State to be better on offense this season. They bring back their quarterback. Both the running backs and the offensive line will be one of the best in the nation.
Even if they're not going to be bad on offense.
Yeah, so it's just you play better offenses this season. So hell, Minnesota's going to be better on offense this year, especially if Taylor, their running back, stays healthy, who I actually have in my preseason all Big Ten. So it all. I think if we're a top 15 to 20 defense, I'll be happy.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of more in line with Garrison. My whole thing is, Knowles didn't do recruiting. I don't see him doing recruiting either. And that's kind of what I've been seeing a lot of things on. It's like, the players didn't like him. Well, I don't think he's gonna be recruiting. That's why we kept all of our position staff. Our position staff is the ones who are doing the recruiting.
Yeah, Tim won't be doing a lot.
I'm not really,
right.
Yes. So I'm not really concerned there. From what I've heard, I don't think they're going to be switching to like a 3-3-5 over here. I think we're going to keep the same as long as Larry Johnson's there. It's going to be a 4-man front, and I hope it stays that way. Even when they tried the 3-man front with the Jack with Knowles last season, a couple games against Purdue, and Purdue just switched to running the ball. And they were able to run the ball on us when we were in the 3-man front, with the Jack position. Like, we are not a team built for a 3-man front still. So we got to stay in that 4-man front. And so I just think, like, and again, it's not you guys, but when I've been looking at like how the media is covering this, like sports media, beat writers, all that stuff, they've been, they've kind of been almost acting like he's going to come in and he's going to be the one primarily dealing with the personnel. He's going to be the one, and they're trying to project like his record as a head coach onto his abilities as a defensive coordinator. And, you can say it's Belichick when he was in, with the Patriots. But if it was really just Belichick, I don't know why Belichick would have kept him for almost 20 years. Like, if it really was just Belichick, So I feel pretty decent about it now. Is our defense going to be better this year or as good this year as it was last year? No, you're losing freaking 8 of 11 starters. Okay. I don't care who you're bringing. If Jim Knowles stayed, the defense is not going to be as good this year as it was last year. You cannot replace, even with Downs back there, even with Styles back, you're just not going to be as good this year. So it's going to be very toxic in the forums this year because people are going to see the drop back and they're immediately going to go, oh, it's, freaking Matt Patricia. Like, no, you're replacing 8 starters on defense. Good luck. Now, I still think the defense will be good. I'm expecting at least like a top 20 defense. I think we had a top 5 defense this year. I'm thinking more top 20. We'll see if, Goku or Julian Sayin, is going to be able to, up the ante from a quarterback position. I mean, you're bringing back all most of the wide receivers. I like the Claire. They brought in Claire at the transfer portal. I think that's big. We'll see about the tackles. They keep talking about transfer portal. We have 2 transfer portal tackles. And, it's boom and bust with transfer portal, right? Are we going to get Isaiah Simmons his first year where, our left tackle's going to be okay, but he's going to be getting a bunch of penalties?
Josh Simmons.
You mean Josh?
Josh Simmons, yes. Yeah. Yes, Josh Simmons.
He was god awful. He was god awful.
He was. And, he went from god awful to freaking, first round offensive tackle. Like, that's why Florida State, was, really good in 2023 and was really bad in 2024 because they just rolled the dice with the transfer portal. You're rolling the dice when you're doing the transfer portal. So I'm interested to see. I think that's going to be the real thing this year is going to be the offensive tackles. But anyways, get back to my original point. I just think that Patricia's going to be fine, but everyone's going to lose their freaking mind because the defense just is not going to be as good this year. It's not going to be. I'm not saying it's going to be bad, but if we lose to Texas, I'm not going to be incredibly surprised. If we played Texas week 10, I think we have a better shot. But playing them week 1, right off the bat, the only thing we have going for us, I think, really is that we're at home, right? So
I mean, there's more than that. I mean, look, Texas is replacing 3
tight end. Yeah, their best wide receiver.
Best 2 wide receivers. And their best defensive lineman.
Yeah, defensive lineman. The defense should be still fine, but they're going to be in the same situation Ohio State and both less talent. I think the number's 3. I think it's like 3 points right now for early spread. I would pick Ohio State to cover that today, simply because we're at home. And mind you, I mean, you get betting wise, you get 3 points automatically for being home. So
I don't think either one of us would be surprised if Ohio State lost that opening game.
I wouldn't be.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's not just Patricia being out there for the first time either. Brian Hartline's first game calling plays.
I might be a little upset, but I'd be like, probably needed it. But
and one final point here on Patricia. Like I said, I'm still not sold on the hire, but that doesn't mean I'm not open to changing my mind. Like if he comes in and my expectations are for this defense to be in the top 20. If he does that, great. Then, the hire was good. The players don't complain. Good. Then you know what? He might be the right decision. Now, if it's like, if the defense really falls off, and I'm talking they're like 40th, 50th, something like that, where you're not even in the top half of your own conference in terms of defense, that's a problem. And that is even with all the production loss, you should still be able to be better than that. So that's just what I'm worried about. Now, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think they'll be better than that. So I'm definitely open, like I said, to having my mind changed on the hire.
Yeah. We'll get him, Garrison. We'll get him.
No,
we'll transition you eventually.
I'm looking for the day. I'm looking for the day. Like, I'm not looking. Waiting for the day when. And honestly, listen. If week one happens, if week one happens where Ohio State's defense just comes out and completely knocks Texas out of the park, I'm gonna ask Ryan. Actually, Ryan, I'm gonna ask you today. If and this is only for week one.
Okay.
If in week one Matt Patricia comes out and completely flatlines Texas's offense, will you write a 3-paragraph sorry letter to Matt Patricia?
I will not.
I'll write one in the super chat.
I will not do that. But I would be pretty impressed. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely hoping that happens.
I'm not expecting
I'll sign off with Ryan. I'll sign off with Ryan's name. I'll write one in a super chat and sign off with Ryan's name.
There you go. There you go, SB. There you go.
Well, appreciate you giving us a call here, Stereotypical Buckeye.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Come back in next week.
Anytime, yeah.
All right, man. All right, see you guys.
Garrison, anything else you want to talk about here before we wrap?
I actually know I was watching the chat and they were talking about just like guys from from Wayne, like guys like Braxton Miller. I actually shout out to my guy Seth. I actually played with one of Braxton Miller's wide receivers in college. His name was Seth. We call him Betos because his parents are from Barbados. But I actually a few times got to hung out with Braxton Miller out in Wayne. We would drive from Fort Wayne, Indiana, over to Columbus and hang out over there. But yeah, just saw that. Yeah, man. And also, I saw the reels talking about this. Are you going to the spring showcase?
I will not be there just because I don't. They still haven't even told us what the format's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Even as people that cover, right in the media. So I'm not sure there's a whole lot of value for me to be there. So I think the era of needing to go to the spring game for me is probably over.
Listen, I'll tell you what. The only reason I would go, because and I mean the only reason, because I can watch it on television, of course.
Yeah,
is an excuse for.
Okay. Well, I mean, for me.
Oh, wait, my bad. Wait,
you're freezing a little bit. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, am I good now?
Would you go? Yeah, you're good now.
Okay, whoa, wow, I was like, my whole screen went black. No, I was saying I will wake up in the morning, go Buckeye Donuts. At lunch, gotta go to Raising Cane's. And then at dinner, I go get myself a nice beer and go to Thurman's and get me a nice burger. That's the only. It would just give me a reason to eat like shit. That's why I would.
Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned. I mean, you can just watch it on TV here, but I can have all of those things tomorrow if I want to. So that's good for me. We will, if that's all you got, we will be back on Monday for the Primetime Live show. We'll see if we can get some more recruiting news here. Maybe we'll get an update on what the format is actually going to be for the spring game. And we'll see if we can get some more details. There's got to be something coming out about that, you would think. Considering the Ohio State basketball season is over because they suck and they lost to Iowa in the Big Ten tournament, but Ohio State fans aren't going to have that. They're not going to be able to watch them in the NCAA tournament. So football's all we got right now. So
you know whose season isn't over in basketball?
Yeah, that's not my problem. We'll go ahead and we'll be watching from afar. But that's it from us. So we'll see you guys on Monday at 8. OH.
IO.